almost 100% Catholic, to elect a monster like Hitler. The truth is, at the beginning, Hitler didn't look like or talk like a monster at all. He talked like an American politician. We also had gun registration. Oh, the Austrian people all had guns. But the government said the guns are very dangerous. Children are playing with guns, hunting accidents happen, and we really have to have total control, safety. And we had criminals again. And the only way that we can trace the criminal was by the serial number of the gun. So we dutifully went to the police station and we registered our guns. Not long after, they said, no, it didn't help. The only way that we don't have accidents and crimes, you bring the guns to the police station, and then we don't have any crimes anymore and any accidents. And if you don't do that, capital punishment. So that's what we did. So dictatorship didn't happen overnight. It took 5 years, gradually, little by little, to escalate up to a dictatorship. When the people fear the government, that's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, that's you. That's liberty. Keep your guns. Keep your guns and buy more guns.
Hey there, I'm Big Tiny. I'm the host of Big Tiny's Oldies and More, where we play music from the 50s to today's favorites. So check us out Monday through Friday and see what we're playing right here on Spreaker.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Deloach Approach right here on WNLM. And boy, we have had a fascinating show tonight. We've been talking to former Oklahoma Representative Charles Key from Oklahoma City. And our topic of discussion tonight has been the Oklahoma City bombing. I want to tell you about two things. If you're interested in finding out more about this, I want to tell you about two things you can do. Number one, you should go to Charles Key's webpage, which is charleskey.com, and that's spelled K-E-Y, charleskey.com, and order a copy of the book, Final Report. It is full of affidavits and evidence. I'm talking about real courtroom evidence regarding the Oklahoma City bombing. They had tons of other stuff they could have put in, but there weren't affidavits that went with that. And so this is full of things that is provable. The second thing you can do, you can go to YouTube and you can watch a video called A Noble Lie. It's put out by Free Mind Films, and it's about a 2-hour video. You'll see Charles Key on that video, and some of the other people that he's discussed tonight will be on that video as well. It is an eye-opening video, and it tells the story that we've been telling tonight in a very eloquent way. So the name of the film on YouTube is A Noble Lie, and Charles's book, found at charleskey.com, is Final Report. Now, as I've looked over the evidence in the book, The Final Report, and watched this film, Charles, there have been several things that have stood out to me that have caused me to question what's going on. The fact that the bomb squad was seen there that morning before the bombing. The fact that the Executive Secretariat's office at the Justice Department in Washington, D.C. received a call, or it's reported that they received a call 20 minutes before the bombing saying that the Murrah building had been bombed. The fact that the horse patrol for the Oklahoma City Police Department were activated and were getting ready to do crowd control that morning early. The fact that there were multiple bombs, all of those things stand out to me as being circumstances that make me have a big question mark above my head. In fact, I may have more questions about the Oklahoma City bombing now than I did before the show. What's your take on that, Charles?
Well, there are questions. I mean, here's a good subject to talk about is, to this day in 2015, the government refuses and has fought every effort to release the surveillance videos on the Murrah building and all the buildings around the Murrah building and all over the Oklahoma City area that they confiscated. And that's a story in and of itself. There is a case that has been ongoing in the Salt Lake City area, believe it or, I mean, of all places, to try to force the release of those videos. And the genesis of it was there just happened to be a man in the Federal Transfer Center here in the Oklahoma City area. It was in my district, as a matter of fact, by the airport. And this guy got killed. He was actually killed by federal agents in that transfer center. Long and short of the story, we don't have time to get into it really deeply. It's very interesting in and of itself. Is they mistook him for one of the possible perpetrators. His name was Kenneth Trinidad.
Yes.
And so when the family started looking into this issue of why he died and how, they started getting input from others that said he was killed by federal agents. He did not commit suicide like the government tried to claim, and it was because they thought he had a role in the Oklahoma City bombing, which he did not. His brother, Jesse Trinidad, is an attorney in Salt Lake City, and the family would not let that rest, and they filed a lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons for wrongful death, in which they won that suit. They won that lawsuit. Well, they didn't let it stop there, because as they found out that this was related to the Oklahoma City bombing, Jesse Trinidad, a very honorable man in the family, the mother and the other family members, felt compelled to pursue it, the truth about it. And so he filed an Freedom of Information Act lawsuit up there in Salt Lake City, and it's gone on for years. And then he just got a judgment from the judge after many years of the Justice Department and FBI trying to stop it and stonewall it and do all kinds of things to force the release of the videos. And so we're going to find out hopefully in the short-term future here if they will be able to find those. But think about this. You've got surveillance videos on the building that did point down. There's physical evidence to prove that and show it, that point down on the street that will point to the truck, and it would show what that explosion looked like, who got out of the truck, and who knows what else. And they refused to release it. If there wasn't anything to cover up and hide from the public, then why would you not release that information?
Exactly. That's amazing.
As a matter of fact, let me mention this quick story. There is a little snippet of a video that they released from the Regency Towers, which was the next block west of the Murrah building, in which McVeigh had stopped there, and just before the bombing, he pulled the truck over on the other side of the street, got out, walked into the front door, because there was a little kind of a convenience store in those Regency Tower apartments. And he went in and he bought a pack of Marlboro cigarettes and 2 cans of pop. And McVeigh was not a smoker. And he walked out. Well, there's that little snippet, but they didn't give enough of that video. They didn't release enough of it so you could see the truck drive by when it drove by to see how many people were in the cab. They didn't do that. But, and that's not indicting in and of itself, although it sure gives more information. The guy that ran that store said that you could see somebody else in that truck, and there was other witnesses that saw someone else in that truck. So,
well, as far as I remember, and I started counting, there were like 24 witnesses who said they saw someone else in the truck with Timothy McVeigh.
Right.
One of the most important witnesses, and there are many, many, many witnesses that the government interviewed and told them they were definitely going to be a part of the case. They're going to bring them into the federal trial, and then they never use them, was Rodney Johnson. who was driving one of these, what do you call it, kind of like, not a catering truck, but these trucks that go around to job sites and fix food for workers.
Yeah,
and
food truck.
He was pulling right in front of the building as McVeigh had just parked the Ryder truck there, and as he was getting ready to pull down in front of that, McVeigh walks out in front of his truck, and he had to throw his brakes on to not hit McVeigh.
Oh, my goodness.
And he sees McVeigh and sees him walk across the street north to that parking lot, and he said he'll never forget it because he got a good look at him because he thought, oh, this guy almost ran into him, almost ran over him. And the rest of his FBI statement, by the way, Rodney Johnson was homosexual, by the way, and he said this to the FBI, and it's in his report. He said, I looked at him, I thought he was a good-looking guy, and I really checked him out and looked him over, which further gives credibility to this event happening.
Right.
Sure.
He was fortunate that he went forward east, and he had a green light there at that particular corner, or he would have been in front of that building, probably been killed.
That's right.
And he went on to the next block, and the explosion pushed his truck forward. Anyway, Rodney Johnson came forward before there was any coverage and told the FBI what he saw. So therefore, no one can claim anything about his testimony, such as he was influenced by media reports or anything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Wow.
Well, I'm like Steve. I have more questions now than I had before the show. I want more. I want more information. I want to know. I want to get to the bottom of it. It's like a puzzle, and I want all the pieces. I want to put them together, and I want to see the big picture.
There's a man named Abner Mikva, who was a congressman from, I believe it was Illinois, was a federal judge at one time. He made a statement that was a statement that he made in a speech, as I recall, to a certain group, in which he said, he was quoted as saying, if the public knew the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing, that I can't remember the rest of that statement, but they would be shocked if they knew the rest of the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing, about what really took place. My first suspicion is that has to do with, this sting operation that was being falsely created and that got out of control. And if they knew that, and they knew then the subsequent cover-up of it, that they would be, enraged about what took place there.
Well, I'm stunned. Let me ask you this: what do we learn from all of this? Is there something 20 years later that you look back on and say, okay, here's what I've learned from this experience?
Yeah, it didn't take me 20 years later. It took me not that much time just being involved in politics, but it's the same lesson that's been learned throughout the history of mankind, and the same lesson that was learned by the people that were referred to as founding fathers and others that fought in our Revolutionary War. And quite frankly, that is, do not trust government. You cannot trust government. And our system of government in our country was built on the fact that government, like George Washington said, is an all-consuming fire. It will consume things, and you have to keep it under control. You can't let it get too big or have too much power and authority, because it can, and may very well get out of control. And the Oklahoma City bombing and many other cases are examples of that. And so I know, as I've said that over the years, it's usually pretty well received, but there's always people that aren't real sure about a statement like that. They may think it's a little bit too extreme or radical, because I think part of the reason is we've been conditioned about our government, that our government's good and they always have our best interest at heart. But, government is just people just like the rest of us. And if the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing was known, especially early on, there was a lot of people that would have lost jobs, people that would have lost retirements, people that would have maybe been embarrassed publicly. Their families would have been affected. And so there was good reason to go along with a cover-up or look the other way while it was being covered up, because there was a lot to lose. There would have been lawsuits. Matter of fact, we talked about this off air a week or so ago. There were lawsuits filed by multiple major legal law firms to sue the federal government for wrongful death or charges along that line. And they couldn't quite get to the point where they had the level of